Hi, today I'm going to expand on my Angular series where we were building our portfolio using expense tracker. In today's video, I'm going to discuss routing and lazy loading. In my previous videos, I have discussed signals. If you haven't watched that, so a link will be coming on the top. And in the second video, I have discussed about reactive forms. So you can see and watch that video. Again, the link will be here on top. Now, in today's video, what I'm going to work on, I will be working on the routing. So without further ado, let's just move to our routing series, routing and lazy load. So this is the topic. And again, we will be expanding on our existing expense tracker. So before going into the theoretical aspects, just let's just quickly see what we have over here. So this URL is hosted publicly. I'll be pasting it in the comments or description of the video as well. So this expense tracker was having these like specific bars, and what we have recently added, we have added this added budget limits and add expense tracker. So for the add expense, we could have add any expense, let's say of amount any food rather than food, let's keep it other. And once we added that, so you can see quickly any expense have been like quickly added. And on similar lines, we can change the limit of any budget. So let's just change the shopping to 20,000 to give us more luxury. So let's just try switching, and now we can expend some more money on the shopping. So with this being said, so let's just move to our routing. So what is the problem and why we are moving towards the routing? First, we will try to assess what the problem itself is, and then we'll be expanding on what we are going to use. So what is actually happening? Once we created our project, so we were having everything within our dashboard component. So if I can quickly show you, so you can see within the features, we are only having a dashboard component, and everything is part of this dashboard component. So even this TS file is a big TS file, and dashboard is itself is a whole chunk of HTML. So with this, what is actually happening? So let's just quickly see. So what is actually happening? Like, what does this dashboard component holds? It We have our signals over here, all the three type of signals which we have created: expenses signal, limit signal, and the selected category signal. Then computes are again there, which were based on top of the existing signals. So budgets, totals, and the filtered expenses. Then comes the summary cards, budget bars, and the budget editor forms. The reactive forms again, which we have added in the last video, are again here. And what we are doing, we are rendering the expense list over here as well. So it just one component is doing everything. So it's going to work for a single page. If let's say we are just creating a single page application, so it's going to work. But if we are building a big application, so we have to explicitly split this into multiple components. You can say multiple four, let's say 4 pages or 4 components. So once we try splitting it, what actually happens? The problem we are going to face, signal do not survive component description, because once we will be navigating from one component to another, and one component is getting rendered and the other is getting like destructed, so signals are getting offloaded or they won't be surviving. So what is actually happening? Let's say if a user navigates from dashboard to expenses, to expenses. So what is actually going to happen? All the signals that are included and as part of the dashboard TS file, so they are going to get destructed. So as I just mentioned, like Angular is going to destroy this component, and our signals goes with that. And if again we try and navigate back to our like dashboard form, So you might be able to follow along with me that we are creating a seed expense data population technique for our this form, and this is a sort of a hard coded data. So everything is gone because again the component is getting reloaded, and if the user have added something, so it is going to get lost. So this is the core problem. So what's the solution then? So the solution for this problem is that we need to have a service. So what does a service is? A service is a class that Angular create once and keep alive for the entire lifetime of the app. So service is always there. If a component is getting destroyed, so service is not getting destroyed and it's keeping track of the data and the signals within it. So what we are going to do, we are going to move all our signals into this service, and every component that needs uh, it's going to ask like Angular to inject that service in that respective component. So let's just quickly see. We just create an expense service, and it's going to like live forever for the application lifetime. What actually goes there? Expense signal is going there, limit signal, all the computed signals are going to get there, and certain methods like add expense and save expense, save budget, because these are part of like add expense. We can call it from any component, and we don't want our UI to handle such type of changes. So down the road, what we are going to do, we are going to create a dashboard component. We might be going for an expense component, then budget component, and add exponent component too. So what's going to do, in every component, we are going to inject this expense service, and all the signals will be available there. So again, so all those components share the exact same signals, and as our component update a signal, same is be going to get available to the others component as well. So this was something which we have discussed about, like how this service is going to help us. But before going into further details, let's just see a strategy how browser itself load an Angular app. So this is something behind the scenes, but it's going to help us evaluate and get the actual crux and gist of the material. So let's say when we like run an ng build command. So what does Angular do? Angular compiles all our TypeScript code into JavaScript file, so the browser can understand that. So these files or compiled files are itself called bundle. So when we do not use any lazy loading, so what does Angular do? Angular puts everything into one bundle. Let me just quickly show you. So here, as you might recall, that using ng build command, let me quickly show you the command as well. So ng build, so you can see ng build command which we have used to create our output. So within doc, you can notice that this is just one JS file being created. We can't see any other JS file. Everything is part of it. Currently, we do have just one component, but this is just to let you know that all the things are going to get bundled in this if we are not opting for a lazy loading. So just to give you a context, and you can see if I just quickly grab this file, so you can see how long this file is. So this is just a big bundle. So I'm so let's just quickly move to the topic. So main JS is going to have all the dashboard components, expenses component, and the budgets component. Everything is going to get there. All templates, all dependencies. So any all type of dependencies are going to be there. So what actually happens when a user open our app, the browser downloads the main JS. I'm talking about the first time user, or either you have like uploaded a new build of your app. So what is actually going to happen? All this main.js file is going to get completely downloaded before anything shows up. So if usually we are having good internet connections, but if you're facing a low internet connection, so then the user will be facing a delay. So user will be staring at a blank screen because no JavaScript is being downloaded and nothing have been performed by the browser for rendering. So it will give up like not that pleasant experience to the user. So what this problems basically becomes at a scale. Let's say if we are having a big enterprise application, have multiple pages and multiple components. You can think of like dashboard, and then we later expand it to admin panel or analytics or notifications and so many other files. So think of this that there are KBs, multiple KBs of files, and all other libraries are there. So every user download code for the admin panel, even if they never visited. Let's say if I have a single bundled application and it do have the main front end portal thing and the admin panel is also there. So the normal user do not need to have that admin panel thing. So what is going to actually happen? They are even getting the it downloaded prior to watching or like seeing any page being rendered. So what actually happens, every user download heavy chart libraries, even they are not going to open the reports as well. So this bundle grows to like or 2 to 4 MB, or it might be much bigger than that. So what does now comes into play? You can think till now you can think of it as a in a sense a quick single eager loading in a sense, or no lazy loading over there. So what does lazy loading is going to do? So it tells Angular like do not include this page in the main bundle. So what it's going to do, it's going to create a separate chunks of it and only download it when the user actually navigates there. Let's say if the person do not need that, so there is no need to get this that being downloaded for that user. So what does actually like happen? Let's say our application is going to get chunked in main.js. Then there is a chunk for dashboard, for a chunk for expenses, the budget, and the ad. So what is going to actually happen? At first, when the user open the app, only main.js is going to get downloaded, and it's going to get downloaded very quickly. The reason is that is going to have minimal required changes. It will be having the router or the services and the shared code, and the app will appear instantly. So instead of giving like lagging experience to the user, it's going to get appeared instantly. And when the user like clicks to expenses, if he want to click expense, then that chunk is going to get downloaded and that page is going to appear. And if he never visited the budget, so that chunk is not going to get downloaded over there. So let's just quickly see how Angular implemented. The difference between eager and lazy loading is entirely in app.routes.js. Let me quickly show you that as well. So over here, you can see our Angular app do have a routing app.routes.ts file as well. So you can see all the imports are written over here on top. So what actually happens? Everything imported at the top of the file. You can see dashboard, expenses, budget, each and everything is over there. So what actually happens? It eager loads everything upfront. And because we have imported everything at the top of the file, so Angular bundler see all the three components and pull them into main.js together. And how does lazy loading works? So instead of importing everything upfront on the top, this is a new routing file which we'll be working on when we'll be looking at the code exactly. I'm just trying to explain it now. So over here you can see the export const routes are being used, and inside that there is a load which is accepting a function. So load component takes a function that return a dynamic import. So only the key difference is that the import is inside a function, not at the top of the file. So imported itself is a inside a function, and Angular bundle sees this and knows do not pull this into main.js. So what does actually happen? It just create a separate chunk and it loads when this function itself called. And you can see the function is called in a sense the routing when the user navigate to that respective dashboard, expense, or budget link. So let's just try to break down how this load component is working. So this double brackets and equal to greater than sign, this is an arrow function. So the import only runs like when this function is called. So what happens when the user navigate to this route, as I already mentioned, and you can see the import is being used, and inside that, like you can see, this is the dynamic import, and it returns a promise. We will be discussing what promise itself is, that resolve to the entire module file. So at this point, the browser starts downloading dashboard.chunks.cs, and there then comes the then. So what does then do? Once the download finishes, then the module object is going to get like loaded, and then Angular renders that component inside the router outlet, so which you have already seen in the main. Let me just quickly show that as to you as well. Over here, you can see in the app.html, there is a router outlet. So let's just quickly see what this actually looks like at runtime. So user opens this our URL. What does the user or the browser does? Browser loads the main.js file. So it do have the router and the services. Then the router see the URL is like empty, as the empty URL is being redirected to dashboard in our application. So it's going to redirect to the dashboard. So then the router calls the load component function, and then it downloads the dashboard chunk, and dashboard renders inside router outlet. So this is what actually happens. Then the user clicks expenses link, and what actually happens, router calls the load function for expenses, and then the browser loads expense.chunks.js. So this chunk is again loaded. Then this component has been rendered. And if he tries to click this expenses again, so you know that chunk is already downloaded and cached. So no download is further required. So all time the second visit to any page is very instant because the browser have already cached the chunk. Now comes another thing. So we have seen the eager loading and the lazy loading. Then comes a concept called preloading. Lazy loading itself have a downside. What actually happens? The first visit to a page has a small delay. Every first, let's say we have thousands of pages, and every time application have been like published, so all the new chunks need to be downloaded one by one. And every time the user visit a page, it will give a feel of like it is getting delayed. So how does Angular solve it? Solve it with preloading strategies. So what does it do? It actually loads the main bundle file and then shows the app, and then quietly download all other chunks in the background while the user is on the first page. So actually you can think of it's uh, a background job which is actually happening. User landed on the main page, he is still like viewing the page, and behind the scene Angular is downloading all the other chunks. So you can see the configuration, it do have like import preload all modules. And what actually the user does, it opens the main, and in the background all the other chunks are getting downloaded. So there are like we are getting the benefit of two things. One is like the initial fast load is also there, and also the subsequent navigation is way fast. So all the type of production applications do use this. So let's just quickly have a comparison of all these three. If we were doing no lazy loading, so what is actually going to do? Everything is going to get slowed down because whole main JS is going to get downloaded. Lazy loading comes at a cost of a small delay, but this is fast and again minimal bundle. Same goes with lazy loading plus preloading. The first page is instant, and the lazy loading for like a small delay, and then comes the instant in the preloading plus lazy loading. The first page visit, again in no lazy loading, it should not be instant. This is something, let me just highlight it. Uh, let's see. So this should be a bit delayed. So this should not be instant. So let me just correct this because the whole JS file needs to be downloaded first and then it's going to happen. So, and the subsequent visits are again instant for all because everything have been like downloaded. Bundle size again large, and for other it's a small chunks. So this one is the main thing. So let me just highlight that and you can see. So for most production app, the lazy loading plus preloading is being used. So let's just move to the next page or next slide. Let me just remove this. Uh, okay. So what we are going to do, we are going to create the expense service. So what does the expense service do? We have already discussed what we are going to move over here. All the signals, all computed values, like all methods will be moved. So let's just go to the our main application VS Code. So we are going to create a services folder. So you can see within the app, we already have features folder. So let's just create a new folder named as services. And we are going to call this expense.service.ts file. Expense.service.ts file. So this file is being created in the services folder. And now, as I just mentioned, that parallel to this features folder, we have a services folder as well. So this is the code which I'm going to like copy and quickly show you what are the things. So let me just copy the code instead of typing everything. So I have copied the code and we will be discussing the code one by one. So let's just quickly discuss all the concepts that we have introduced in this code, and then we'll be actually looking at the code itself. Quickly move forward. So one thing that we have used is like @injectable. So this is something, this is called a decorator, which makes a class a service. So you can see there is a provided in root, which is going to tell the Angular to just create one single instance of the service and make it available everywhere in the app. So it's going to get available everywhere in the app. So without this decorator, it's just a regular TypeScript class. So Angular is not going to manage it if we do not add this add injectable. Then comes the root. Root means the service lives at the application level. So it's created when the app starts and destroyed when the app closes. So this is exactly what we need for signals because they must survive navigation between pages. And why signals work perfectly in a service? Again, because we need like services or basically signals were previously tied to our component's lifetime. So when the component was getting destroyed, the signal was also getting destroyed. So once we have a service where the provided in root, the service itself is never going to get destroyed during normal app usage, and our signal is going to live inside the service. So they persist across every navigation, every component creation. And you can see like user navigates to the dashboard is created, the service is being injected, it reads the signal, then user navigate to the expense. The same happens and the same service is being injected and the same signals are being read. And same goes on for every other further navigation. One more thing, which we are going to discuss in this code is the use of this TypeScript utility type, which is going to be used within the add expense. So it's called omit expense. And what does it do? Basically, this allows us to take a expense object, but the caller should not provide an ID or date. The reason is that as we are going to create or add a new expense, that expense is not yet created in our database or behind the scene, it do not have any ID being tagged with it. So what actually happens, we do not want this expense object to have an ID of its own. Those are getting generated like automatically by the service, and even the date at the time of entering that record is going to get entered. So these are the two fields which we are not going to take. And the expense type, but without the ID and date type. So this is again the same thing which I just mentioned. So what we are actually capturing, we are capturing the title, amount, category, and an optionally a note. So this brings another topic which is called separation of concern. So you can see like add expense and update limits no longer deal with form validation. So that stays in the component. So the service only care about what to do with the valid data. So not how the data was collected. So basically we are segregating the concerns. Now certain things are being done at the component level and certain things are getting done at the services level. So this itself is a software design principle, which is called separation of concerns. So we need to separate the concerns where certain things are going to deal with certain things. So what is actually happening? The form component is handling the user input and validation. As you might have seen that we have it within the dashboard template, and the service is managing the like state management, like processing the data and the signals having their own state being available. So this is happening, and neither node knows about others internal, because service doesn't know about what is actually happening on the component, and component service itself is a black box. So over here, you can see the injectable that we have just discussed over here with provided in root. The class itself is an expense service class, and this is being used. All the source signals which we were like using in the component, they have been moved over here. So you can see expense limit and selected category. Then comes the computed. So computed for the this month expense is being moved here. The computed for total spent is being moved here. Computed for the budgets is being moved here. And for the totals is being moved here. Even the filtered expenses. And one method which was like add expense have been moved, and you can see over here, this is something which have been like added, omitting expense. So this is over here again, and then we have the update limit function, and one more, the set category, which was previously in the dashboard uh, TS file. So that have been moved to here as well. So with this been done, you can see we have the imports. So injectable import is being there, the signal and the computed, which we are getting using. So and the model like for expense budget category. So those have been imported, and the data is have been imported as well. So with this, let's just move further. As we need to inject it within the dashboard service. So what we are going to do, let's just quickly see what we are going to remove. As we have already like copied or moved certain things in the services. So what we are going to remove from this component, we are going to remove all the signals I have just shown to you. All the computed signals, the set category method, the add expense, and the save budget. So, and what we are going to keep, only component related things are going to stay over here to forms, because forms are going to get used in the template of that component. So forms declaration will stay or stay on their respective component TS file. All the getters, because they are going to get used on the templates, they will stay there. On budget category change, because this is going to get called from the drop down, the select drop down is going to call. So it's going to stay there, but internally it will be reading from the service. And again, the add and save budget, they are not doing it on their own, they are going to call the services method. So think of it's like a wrapper, and the category is going to stay over there as well. So this is just a code, and let's just quickly see the components, new components, and then we will be going to the actual code. So a method which we are going to use is the inject expense service. So this is a new way, like Angular is injecting the service. Previously, Angular was using a constructor-based injection. So what we used to do, we used to write for this new syntax, private expense service is equal to inject and that respective service. And what was actually happening in the old constructor, we were using constructor pattern and a private expense service being injected in that. So it's as of now, as I'm working on version 21. So this inject is preferred in modern Angular, but both are working in the V21. So it's preferred to use this inject because it's well aligned with the signal first approach. And private again means this property is only accessible inside the component. So TS file. So even the template cannot directly access this service. So this is we expose specific signals separately. And like again, so exposing signal as component properties, you can see like we are setting specific properties from the signals. What is actually happening? We are assigning the service signal directly to the component properties, which we'll be quickly looking at inside the code. And these are only going to be a reference of the same signal object. Let's say if we are using a variable, any change is going to happen. The same thing is going to be available in our this component properties because it is referencing to the same signal object. And in even any update is propagated instantly. So again, the template reads budget and total exactly before within the template. We do not have to change anything because template will stay as is, but only this component have been changed. So, and one more thing, form module is also removed from import because there is no need to use any specific ng model anywhere in the dashboard. And all the input now use form control name, which we have done in our previous video. And so what does it do? Why we are removing this type of imports? Because it keeps our bundle smaller. Otherwise, our when we are going to build ng build, so what actually happens? The Angular will include this specific bundle as well. And so also these add expense, as we just discussed, is a handoff now. Previously, what was actually happening? It is using an entire update strategy on its own internally. But now what is actually happening, it's just passing a specific object to that at expense service method, and everything is being done inside that. So every logic is somewhat inside that expense service. So the component handle the validation and data again, data collection, and service handle state update, and neither knows about each other. And as I just mentioned, nothing is getting changed on the dashboard HTML because everything is using somewhat similar name. So it will stay and we are not doing any change over here. So let's just try looking at the code itself. So I have copied the code and you can see one thing over here, like inject is being used because we are going to inject the service, and component is there as well, and reactive form is there, and form module have been like removed as well, and decimal pipe is as is. Previously we were having it over there, and the rest of the things are there. Component is again somewhat similar, and you can see the main things which have been like included. Let me highlight it. So private expense service, so this is the service injection which is actually happening. And then you can see like these properties, all these signals are like getting assigned to these specific properties. So, and the category array is there again. The form group stays as is. It was as it was previously. Getters are there as well. And budget editor itself is again there because that was part of this. Again, the getters are there. And on update category method, it's going to stay over here because it's going to like simply change it, the drop down, and pull the value for the limit. But within the add, let's say you can see it's validating here, getting these values from the form. And what it's actually doing, it's going to call this add expense method of this service. And all the data is being pushed over here. This is basically an object, and all the values being sent over there. And somewhat on a similar line, within the safe, this expense service is being used. So this is that set category. I think, let me just quickly see. Do we have moved the set category here as well? Set category have been moved. So let me just comment it out from the. Let's move further. So we have just created a service and tried moving certain item from our dashboard TS file to this. So let's just try creating some more components. So what we are going to do, we are going to list all the expenses within a slash expenses page. And what we are going to do, we are going to extract all the filter pills and the expense list out of this dashboard and give them their own page. So inside features, we are going to create a new folder expenses. And then we are going to create two files over there, expenses.ts and expenses.html. So let's just do that. So I'm creating expenses folder here, and I'm going to create a new file named expense.ts and one more file like expense.html. So let me copy the code for these two first. I'm just renaming these files to expenses instead of just expense. So let me just change this to. So we have created the expenses component. So let's just quickly see the code and compare it with the old dashboard. So old dashboard, like no signals, no computer found. So nothing is there. Again, injecting the service, expose what the template need, somewhat similar. One method that delegate to the service and what component looks like when the service handles state properly. So again, this component is again a purely view layer. So nothing related to the state management is done here, and it's going to get being like done within the service. So this is the HTML code. So let's just quickly see the improvisation. What we have done previously, we do not showing the we weren't showing the note field because of lack of place. So now we are going to show the notes as well. And since this is a dedicated page, so we have more space. And again, if this is a simple if statement where e note is being used, so it means if the note line only renders if it exists. So this is as this is an optional field, there is a possibility that this is not going to get rendered. And one more thing, we are like dealing over here for the empty spaces, like if something is not there, like if there is no expense. So instead of showing empty, what we are going to show, we are going to show a proper empty state with a helpful message pointing. And it's better to have a clean UI using this way. So with this being done, let's just quickly see it within the code. So over here in the expenses component, you can see again the inject is being used using the private expense service, and like the two properties which are we are again using from the expense service categories is there, and a set category method again there. So and the HTML, if I can quickly show you, so you can see this. We have the page heading over here, which says expenses. Then comes the filter pairs, where we have used a for loop for all the categories. And then comes again a for loop for the expense list. So this is somewhat similar, which we have copied from the component page. So let's just move forward with the next component. Now we are going to build this create budget component. So again, this is going to be a dedicated budget editor, which we have already created within the components page, but now it's going to live at the budgets the URL. So again, we are going to create a budgets folder within the features folder. And again, it's going to be somewhat similar to the expenses. So let's just create it. So within field, like features, I'm going to create budget. Let me just create a new file, budgets.ts, and new file, budgets.html. Let me just copy the code as well. Okay, so I have copied the code over here. And let's just quickly see what we have used on this form, and then we will look at the code in detail. So again, let's just see what's changed like compared to the dashboard version. So what we have done, the budget bars have been like added on the dashboard. The bars and the editor were like separate sections. So on this dedicated page, what we have done, we have shown both together. The bar give the user exact context about current spending before they edit a limit. So it's going to show them what is actually happening with a limit, and then they can modify that. And so it's going to get a like become a self-contained page. So user can see the current state and the edit tool in one place. So budget will have a full control of the bars plus editor, and it's just focused on that budget related thing. So this is again a single responsibility for budget management. You can think of this page as a budget management, and the dashboard basically becomes a read only view. So only change can be done here on these type of budget pages instead of you are changing on the main dashboard. So let's just quickly look at the code over here. Somewhat on a similar lines, inject is being there. Signals, respective signals have been used, the budget and the limit, which we only need. The budget form have been pulled over here. The getters are here. Then the budget change category, like on drop down, this is going to be used. And over here you can see the save button again is using the expense service update limit rather than doing it inside over here. And over here, let's just quickly see. So again, the page heading with the budget limits, a for loop for all the budget bars, and then comes a like budget form limit. And again, this was something which we have changed previously. So something like that was done to make it feel. Let me just quickly show you in the components. Till so far, we haven't changed anything in the component. We will be doing it in the very last. So you can see we have used the not to make it that this will always contain some value and it's not going to be null. So budget TS is HTML is there. So let's just quickly move to our next component. Now we are going to add a simple similar add expense component. It is again going to live at add. And what we are going to do, we are going to add a add dash expense feature. So let's just create that respective. I'm going to add dash expense folder. And on similar line, let me just add the files to add dash expense.ts. So again, I have copied the code for add expense and the HTML template as well, and a folder being created as well. So let's just quickly see the changes. What's new here? A router injection is being used. Like we injected the router service. Previously, we were just injecting the service. But over here, we have injected the router service itself. The reason is that we want to navigate from this page to some other page without the user clicking. So it's just navigating from one to other. So we have used it in like two places. So once the user saves or submit the page, So what it's going to do, it's going to get navigated to the expenses because we have already added the expense. So it's going to get navigated to the expense page. So this is more of a better user experience. User just add an expense and he have been moved to the main list for expenses. And even we have a cancel button as well. If user don't want to like use or like perform a save, so he can again navigate back to the expenses using this cancel button. So this is again like there are like two ways we have used. Router navigate basically takes an array of paths. So what does it do? It's navigate to expenses. For router with parameters like expenses slash 12, we would like to write this forward slash expenses and 123 because we can pass a specific parameters as well. So Angular will be joining those segments automatically. So there are like two things that needs to be looked at when within add HTML, add expense.html. So on the dashboard, what we have done, we have skipped the labels. The reason was that we were relying on the placeholders itself. But as this is more of a dedicated page, so we are going to add labels because this is going to be a better UX experience and placeholder will be disappeared when the user start typing. So they forget what the field actually is for and label will always stay there visible. And two buttons side by side, one is for submit or adding and one is for cancel. So without triggering a save, user can navigate back using the cancel button. So this is again which we have used. So what is actually going to happen after a submit? So instead of like showing a toast over here, because we are navigating back to the main page. So what is actually happening? We are navigating them back to the actual page and a list is being displayed over there. So, so let's just quickly see it within the VS Code. So you can see over here, the import for inject is there. And you can see apart from this expense service, the router itself is being injected. So over here, all the rest of the things are somewhat similar. Getters functions are there, add method is there, and add. But you can see the router.navigate is being done. So once this add expense is being done, so router.navigate is being used. And let's just quickly see the HTML again. So over here, you can see like add expenses there, a form is being there, and you can see the label have been explicitly used before the input. So all are being there. And within that, they're like this input button, the category field and the note, everything is there. Then comes the action buttons. And over here, you can see two buttons are there, one for add expense and the second is for like cancellation. So once we click, we can click cancel and go back. And for this, again, the disabled approach have been used unless and until the form is valid, the user can't save this. So let's just move forward. So far we have done or created these components, but wire the router with the loading, lazy loading is not yet done. So what we need to do, we need to open our app route.ts file. So instead of this eager loading, what we are going to do, we are going to use the lazy loading one per page. So this is the code we are going to change. So let me quickly change it. So I'm opening the router. So you can see quickly, as I've already shown that to you. Just post this. So let me copy the actual code which we are going to use now. So now you can see like only this routes is being imported, but what else? If the path is empty, it's going to get redirected to dashboard. And the dashboard itself is using this load component function and accepting a function, and then the import have been used. So we have tried imposing this load thing over here. So let me just save this And once I'll be compiling the build, I'll be showcasing that to you how the bundles have been like created. So for the time being, let's just move forward and quickly see the concept, and then we'll be try running this app. So again, there are like no imports on the top. We have removed all the imports from the top, and basically it's going to become a dynamic import. So load component is going to used instead of this component directly being fetched. So with this, what is actually happened? Once a load accept a function, that is going to return a promise. So Angular call that function and the user navigate to that respective route, not before that. So this is going to happen. And over here, which we have already seen that the import and the then function, I'm not going into detail for that. One more thing, the valid route card. So this is one of the main thing which we need to see. It is going to match any URL that doesn't match the route above it. So what actually happened if something random have been used, so then the user is going to land on this one. So this should be the last route. If we are going to make it the first one, so the Angular will always be matching it, and we can't render any other page. So it should catch everything which is not being cached by the prior route. So think of it as a more of a generic, and on top of that, we are going to have a specific routes. So let me just quickly showcase this to you. So you can see this is over here. So you can see path static have been used in the very last. So let me just try doing one thing. Let me just try building. Let's maybe we do not run with an error. Let me just, by the time it's going to build it, let's just try verifying what it's saying. We can do it by verify it by using our browsers tool. So when we are going to use the browser, we are going to use the F12, and within that, we are going to see this by filtering the JS. So let me just okay, certain things needs to be fixed before I move further. So I'll be skipping this part for now, and we will see to it later. Let's just try this navigation. So at the navigation bar. So instead of testing that one, we are going for the navigation bar. One thing is that what is actually happening, we need to navigate to these respective pages, but there is no navigation being available. So once we are going to modify our app.html page, so we need to add certain other things to it. So how the layout is going to work, currently we just have a router layout function. Let me just I'll be showcasing it to you in a while. And what we are going to do, we are going to wrap it inside a layout where we need to have specific nav parts. So let me just copy that. I'm going to update this. So let me just add that. So you can see currently our app.html has router outlet only. So let me just paste the code over here. So I have pasted the code over here, and you can see this one is missing. So we need to update our app.ts file as well. So let me just update that as well. And you can see, like, let me just quickly show that to you. So now this one is perfectly working fine. So as we have imported that router link. So let me just close that. So if I can quickly show you, the router link is there. And what else is missing? Let's move forward. So as we have updated this app TS, so you can see that we have imported the router link and router link active. These two like directive that are going to power the navigation links in Angular. So we have replaced all the code which I have just replaced, and what we have added. One thing is the router link, which makes any element navigable. So we have just added router link to an anchor tag, and clicking it navigates without a full radius. Actually, the main objective is to prevent the full page navigation. If we just keep this as a tag, So it will refresh the whole page. So we do not want that. So this is the reason we are using this. This is a client-side navigation, basically. Angular intercept the click, update the URL, and render the matching component inside the router. So no browser refresh or no whole full page is getting reloaded. What does the router link active do? Does it add a CSS class to a link automatically when its route is the currently active one? So we use this to highlight the current page in the nav bar. So this is we are going to use. So let me just quickly show this to you. And one more thing, we need to update the app.css file. So let me quickly do that as well. So I have added that file as well. So let's just quickly see what else is remaining. Over here, you can see we have used hash important. Basically, we want this to supersede any other color. So this is the highest CSS specifically. So the this class is being added by the router link active again. And so this is going to override any active state. So you can see the add link is going to have a purple background always. So this is what we have done intentionally. And what does this router link active does exactly? So automatically it's going to add the class to the respective element. When the URL changes to the x/forward express, what does Angular do? It remove the active link from the dashboard and add it to the expenses link. So this is something which Angular is going to handle entirely. And the difference, which I've already told you, that as Angular is a single page application, so there is only one HTML file, and we do not need to load any do a full reload. If we are going to do a full reload, we are going to lose all our singles state. So router link, what it's doing, it's going to tell it to, instead of doing a full page refresh, internally handle this and try updating that URL and render it inside the router outlet. So till here we have done like everything. So let's just try compiling our app. So let me just try closing this up and let's see. npm start. Let's see what actually happens. Might be we have saved all or not. Let me just save everything. So let me just, there are certain errors we are facing. Let me just quickly go to the terminal, close this, your CSS and all that CLS. Try running it again and then we'll try to see, because there were certain files not being saved. Let's just try going to the HTML. What was there? Okay, one thing, it's still being used, and what I've done, I have commented a function, so I should uncomment that, because let me just see if it's running. Let me just try running. One thing you might be seeing, like lazy loaded chunks have been used, and these have been like created. And let me just try uh, using this, the URL. So now you can see an expense tracker have been used. A dashboard is there. We can go to the expenses and we have a add button. We can quickly add a new expense with any number. Let's just try add, and you can see it's navigated to the expense with this being like highlighted as well. And 8 expenses are there, and budget. Let's just go to the budget, and you can see the top bars are there. Let's just quickly change the shopping to bigger budget, and expenses are again there. So I'm hopeful that you are able to. Let me just quickly show one more thing, which was we have missed. So let me just quickly try refreshing it. It already been loaded. So let me just try doing a full reload. Okay, so let's just, rather than going there, you can see, let me just quickly do the build thing so I can upfrontly show you this over here. Let me just clear this. So It's taking a while, so let me just add a new let me just try using the ng build command, and I'll be showing you over here in the docs. A new folder is going to get created. So you can see over here, HTML file is there, the main JS is there, and the rest are all the chunks files. And it has created more chunks over here. So whenever it's even hopefully this file is going to be a bit smaller than the actual one. So you can see it's a bit small file. The main file is way too small. So let me just stop sharing this. I'm hopeful that you are able to like learn it so far, and I'll be pushing it on the same GitHub URL, and that will help you get equipped yourself with a lazy loading thing. So if you like the video, feel free to like, share, and subscribe the channel for such type of videos. And I'll be trying to complete my Angular series. And future videos will be discussing more like HTTP client and JSON server and some other things. So thanks for watching. Bye.